Good Monday morning, my peeps. It's Yo Adrienne Talks, and I'm excited to have a guest here that loves the law of attraction and has lots of information on it. So I have Sarah McAtee. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, I would love for you to introduce yourself to my listeners and tell them a little bit about you.
Sure. So I am a subconscious mindset coach. And the reason why I make it be more specific like that is because I really do coach my clients' subconscious minds. There's a lot of different mindset coaches out there and a lot of different modalities, and I love all of them. But I really have a special relationship with my clients' subconscious minds, and I help them meet their own subconscious minds and get to know it better. But yeah, I help particularly ambitious creatives, which really can be a lot of people, but it's anybody who's really building a dream, any type of dream. And their mind is kind of getting in their way, or they're experiencing a lot of doubt or imposter syndrome, or really they're putting their own blocks in to their road that they're wanting to do and to pursue. And so I help ambitious creatives unlock their fullest potential by changing their subconscious beliefs.
I love that you're in a great spot because that's basically all my listeners are people who are, female entrepreneurs that are really just, try keep taking the next step, right? To build their business and make it better. So I love
Yeah,
all the things you're talking about. I think we probably all popped on at some point in our life with the doubt and the imposter syndrome and all those things. So
yeah,
I absolutely think you have a great audience that is going to be listening today to hear all your
wonderful.
great tips. So I'd love for you to start. I heard you're like me and you're a definition person, and you usually start with the definition of law of attraction. So I am all ears.
Yeah, my, I guess, informal definition of the law of attraction is that like attracts like. So who you are being is what you're going to attract more of. I know that you probably have heard a lot of different what you think about, you bring about, what you believe and perceive, you can achieve, all of that kind of stuff. That's all law of attraction. But if we really simplify it and bring it down to what does that actually mean? It means that who you are showing up as in the world, you will get more of. And so when people ask me, well, how do I know, what I'm attracting? And I'm like, well, look at what you're attracting. What are you bringing into your life? If you are, bringing in unfortunate events, if there's people are responding to you in a certain way, maybe they're annoyed with you, like random strangers in the grocery store or something. I always like to ask myself, and I challenge my clients to ask themselves, who are you being that's attracting that? My favorite part about the law of attraction is that it really causes you to stand in your power. It really causes you to take responsibility for how you are showing up to the world. And that's super empowering. I think sometimes people have resistance to that because there's a little bit of defensiveness around, well, how could I have created that? Or, what, they're still stuck in the life is happening to me mode. And uh, the law of attraction, when you really get to know it, it's about how is the like that life is happening for me.
Right.
We go from the victim mentality to this very empowering uh, way. I had this past client a couple years ago who, was saying that I feel like, disempowered when I'm like, oh, I did that and I did that. And I hear you. I get that. However, how empowering is it that if you did that, you can undo that?
Oh, good point. Yes.
And I think that it's when you start to live your life in that way, you can slowly reprogram your brain to that's your go-to. Your go-to isn't for me. The go-to is, oh, awesome. Like I did this. Oops. Okay, let's take a step back and you really start to believe that you do create your reality. And I
I
love
love,
when that
yeah, I
shift
love
starts to happen.
I was gonna say, I love that stand in your power, because, every time when I get off, I'm like, realize the power is within you because it's so true, right? Like it's not that, it's not that you're controlling outside things that happen to you, but it's controlling how you respond and how you relate it to your life. Like, right?
Yes.
Like it's that whole, what's the one like you have one flat tire, so you slash the other three, it's like, how are
Yeah.
you reacting to
Yes.
the thing that happens
Right.
to you?
Right.
And it's
Right.
so true because it's hard for people to process that with, like you said, that defense mechanism kicks in because it's like, no, 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 I didn't do this. Like, no way. But when
Yes.
you can grab a hold of that, for
Mhm.
sure, it changes the way you look at life and the way you look at things happening and how you can create the vibe that you want to attract, right? So,
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it stops the momentum of the next segment. I don't know if anybody who's listening knows who Abraham Hicks is, but one thing that they say is the segment of things. If something happens in a certain segment of your life, let's say the morning, something unfortunate happened in the morning, you still have the power. Just because that had happened, just because a car hit your parked car and you had nothing, you're like, what the heck? Doesn't mean that the next segment, the next hour, the next couple of minutes, you have to respond to that and create more unfortunate events. You have the power at any moment to kind of press that energetic and vibrational reset button so that the next segment you can kind of turn it around. And that really plays into the whole uh, responsibility and like really standing in how you get to react. Like you really are in control of your reality because you get to choose how you're going to show up in the next
right.
segment.
I love
So,
that. I've never thought of it in segments. That's such a great way to look at it that like, you can segment that out. Like I've had that before where you have to like, okay, like, you go to do something and something else happens and something else and you're like, "Oh, it's gonna be one of those days." And I'm like, "No, it's just a 5 minutes," right? Like
yes,
we can
yes,
now take this 5 minutes and
right.
say, "Well, that was not the best way to start my day, but that doesn't have to define my day."
Yes,
That's such a great point.
100%.
I like the segment because that really feels like, "Hey, this is just this little clip like, that's it.
Yes.
You can move on
Yeah.
from here."
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I've trained myself. I mean, I'm still training myself, right? Because that's the whole point of reprogramming your brain is little by little moments. But I've programmed myself that whenever something unfortunate happens, my first thought right after that is, okay, slow the momentum down. Let's just let's just slow it down. Like it doesn't have to continue. And that really helps. And when I have those days where there's a lot of momentum happening and it's like one thing after another, and I'm like, what is like I'm always like, what is happening? And I either will call a friend and I feel really blessed that I have friends who all practice this stuff too. So when I call them and go, I gotta change my vibration right now. Like they're like, got it. And they help me change it, or I go to this place of like, just get to my bedroom, just get to my bedroom, right? Because it's like this, like, nothing can touch me. Like, my car is parked. I'm not like, because a lot of energy is held in cars. And so, and we're all co creating. So when you think about being on the freeway, it's not just you creating a reality, it's the car next to you and the car next to you and then in the front and like, and everyone is in control of their reality. And so sometimes there's some crazy literal crashes that happen with that. And so I think I just go to that place of like, hey, how can I get to a place where like nothing, I can really decrease the chance of something else happening so I can get a handle on it, like, and slow the momentum down.
It's so funny that you say that because I play volleyball and like when all of a sudden you're on the defensive side a bunch and you're like, slow it down. Like we have to start back fresh so we can get them on the defensive side, right? Like it's so
Yeah.
interesting that even, in your thoughts, like if you slow it down and get back to your place, like where you feel in control again, that is such a great point. I've never thought of that before. And I say it all the time in
Yeah.
volleyball. I'm like, slow it down. Wait,
Yes.
get back to where we are, like, because you
Yes.
kind of start letting the momentum of other things happening at you, you know, mess with your vibe and what you're doing. So I've never even thought of it that way. Like, take that
Yes.
minute to slow it down and go, is this the vibe I want to be in all day? Do I want to, like I was in that moment? Like I was like, oh, these three
Yes.
things just happened to me in a hot second. What's coming next? And but I can go, wait, no, this was just a little thing. The rest of the day is going to be great. Like I can
Yeah.
reset that. That's
Yeah.
so interesting to say it that way. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, what are some tricks that you have used like with the slow it down, but like when you're subconscious, like how do you catch those thoughts? Like sometimes like when you're first starting in this, I know how hard it was. I was there. I was a very victim mentality kind of person for a while too. How do you start catching that? Like what are some of your tricks to helping people to catch those thoughts and realizing that those are what's creating what you're attracting?
Yeah. Great question. And I actually have this is like my freebie that I give out to people because this is like such a common question that I get. And I will shortly be actually turning this into a webinar, a live webinar. So I'm so glad you asked me this
Oh,
because
cool.
it's so important. Um, if we really, because it can be quite complicated, right? But if we try to simplify it the best we can, I have came up with 5 steps that help us. The first step is that you have to become aware of your thoughts. Like, you literally can't do anything after that. Like, if you can't be aware of your thoughts in the moment that it's happening, if you still struggle with, um, like after everything happened, you're like, oh my gosh, like what was that? And, when I'm thinking about it, then it's hard to stop it in the moment. So the key is to really train yourself to identify, well, what thoughts am I currently having right now that's causing me to feel those things and then causing me to attract more of that. So step one is become aware of your thoughts. Step two is you need to stop the thought. I have a trick called cancel, cancel. And pretty much whenever a thought that does not serve you comes into your mind, you're going to say cancel, cancel. I always view it as like 2 red X's because you can say cancel, cancel, but still visualize the thing that's not wanted. So I try to come from all the sides and cancel it out. So I'll say cancel, cancel. And oftentimes it will look like a half a thought has gone. Like I could be like, yeah, well, I am cancel, cancel. And the other person doesn't hear it. And then I don't hear it anymore. And I don't allow that to fully form.
Well, and that's good too, because like you said, once you're aware, you realize that a lot of it is spiraling, right? Like like I said, like, so this thing fell on my foot and then I spilled the milk and then, right? Like
Yes.
now I'm putting them all together instead of the fact that if I would have canceled each one, it's
Yes.
just one little thing happening, but that's what our brain has a tendency to do is like bundle it, right? So like I say,
Yes.
I'm not good enough. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, not only are you not good enough, you're not good with your kids and you're not good with your husband, right? And it bundles it like you did this, this, and this, and like creates this bigger
Yeah.
vision. And that's
Which,
where,
you actually are describing the law of vibration because the law of vibration states that vibration attracts like vibration. So our thoughts are a form of vibration. So if we're having a certain negative thought, because of the law, we're going to have another thought that's on that same vibration. And that's honestly how we totally spiral down. And we're like, how did I get here? How did I start
right,
here? And now I'm on a completely different subject, but they all feel awful. Like
right.
they're not
Yeah.
good, they don't feel good. That actually brings me to a really good point that you will know, like for step two, you will know that it's a thought you want to stop when you don't feel good about it. That's like I get that question a lot too is, well, how do I know that this is not a thought serving me? I'm like, because your body will tell you. It will tell you that it's not agreeing with your statement.
Right.
And so when you don't feel good, that's when you go cancel, cancel. Now, if you want to even go a step further, when you are in conversations with people, when you're interacting with others and they say something that does not feel good to you, let's say you have a friend who struggles with their body image and they're really critical of their body. And when they criticize their nose or criticize their weight, your body does not feel good when they say that,
Right.
then you can also cancel that. You can also go, no, cancel. Like, I don't want that for me, but I don't want that for you.
Right.
And so, I mean, I would say that it's helpful if you have a conversation with the person and say, I'm not cutting you off. I'm not trying to be mean or disrespectful. I really like just want the best for you. And um, I just don't want that in my space.
Right.
So,
I love it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, step 3 is to get off the subject. It's to break up the energy. It's to deactivate the thought. And so I like to meditate or take a nap, or basically these 5 steps are the definition of slowing momentum down. It's helping you actively know how to slow the momentum of thought and vibration and emotion down. So it's really like doing activities that break it up. And maybe what that looks like for you is like you just turn on your favorite song, like a song that you've just been jamming out to, and that gets you off the subject. Basically, like, help yourself not remain in the thought vibration that you were just in.
Yes.
Step 4 is replace the thought. So that's super important because you want to um, let a certain thought linger. Like, you want that to be the dominating thought. So whatever, and it's easy because whatever thought you were having, just flip it. So if, very simplistically, if the thought is I'm not enough or I'm not talented enough, then you flip that with I have so much talent in my little finger. Or something that really like caught like puts that into your subconscious. That's like the dominating belief.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I
Um
think that's so smart because that's what we have to do is I always learned it as like a almost like a rudder, like you have a thought and it creates this, you know,
yes.
like this alley, right? Like that
Yes.
the ball keeps
Yeah, I
going
call
back
it a
and forth.
trench. Yeah, I call it a
Yes.
trench. Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
trench in your brain. And it's like you have to be the one to start a new trench, right? Like
Yes.
this thought has been
Yes.
going through your head, like, I'm not enough or I don't have enough money or whatever thought. And you have to be the one to create that new trench, but it's gonna take a
Yes.
while to make it as
Yes.
deep as the trench you already created, right? So,
Yeah, I love that you
replacing that
brought that
thought.
up. Most
Yeah,
people don't most people don't even bring that part up, and I love that you brought that up because that really is what, like, if we really got into it a little bit further, the trench that I describe is actually a neural pathway. And so I know that we're saying like a trench and like, okay, cool, what does that matter? It matters because your brain quite literally fires together on the thought that you continuously think. So it's not like that you really get to that you're deciding to think this or not. Like, you've created a pathway, a connection because of the amount of times that you've thought that thought, that now you have to go in and actually take the time to like rewire a new synapse so that that's the dominating pathway, and the other
right.
pathway slowly dies away. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
It's always been such a good visual for me because 'cause I'm like, you know, it's not gonna be easy, right? Like, it's gonna take some
Yes.
time, and you are gonna have to catch it and replace that thought. So,
Yeah,
I love that,
yeah,
yes.
definitely. Yeah, and then there's just one last step, step 5, which is that you allow the new thought to gain momentum in that direction, and you just watch how the world responds to you. It's pretty much going, "Oh, okay, I have enough talent in my baby finger." Now you're like, now hopefully with the law of vibration, you then have the next thought that's a positive thought that match that thought. Like, oh yeah, and then you start thinking of all the ways you are talented, and now you've literally just stopped yourself from creating or recreating the trench that you've been creating and creating a new trench. And that's, if you do that over and over again, that's how you rewire your brain.
And I mean, it can work for so many things. Like, in the direct sales industry, you've got people who are, oh, I can't book a party or I can't sell or I can't sponsor or can't lead a team or whatever it is. And it's like, all of those were created at some point in this business. You had something happen or you started automatically with that thought. Like I've had people who right away are like, I don't know how to lead. And I'm like, we all know how to lead because if we're all of a sudden you're in a terrible situation, it's amazing how you all of a sudden go, oh, maybe we should do this or that or
Yeah.
this or that, right? Like when
Right,
you're
right,
under
yeah.
fire. But
Yeah,
really, we have that capability all the time. It's just funny how we downplay everything we're given and start in that spot of like, this is what you created thinking this whole time instead of you could have thought the exact opposite, right? Like the
right.
whole time. But it's so interesting to me how much that affects all of it. So, when we're talking about things, that one little thing you create, like we said, if it's just today's going to be a bad day, that can be lead to every day this week and then every week and then every month. And then
Yeah.
guess what? My whole life, all the time, things go wrong for me. Right. Like I just,
Yes.
or you, like you said, you stop it and you're like, that was just this little bit. Today's going to be great.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the goal is that just as you described all of the snowballing effect of the negative things, the goal is that you get to then do it the other way. And now you're living a life where everything's happening for you. And you like, everything's working in your favor.
And I love
So,
that because I try to tell, when I'm working with people all the time, just as easily as that negative spiral came out of my mouth, the positive spiral can come out of your mouth, right? But like
yes.
so many people, it's that quote from Pretty Woman. I'm like, it's so true. The negative stuff is easier to believe, but it's not. It's just we've allowed that, right? Society's allowed
Yeah.
that. You've allowed that your whole life. Well, there are people who don't think that way. They only
Right.
think the other way. They only think the positive side is so I wanna, like,
Yeah.
change that quote to, like, the good stuff's easier to believe. That's what we need to
Yes.
remind
Yes.
ourselves that the good stuff is easier to believe. You have
I
to that.
agree. Yes, definitely.
Oh, I love that. I love and if you have that freebie that I can share, I would love to, share with them on my Facebook page too as well so that they can have that if
Sure.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I'm turning into a free live webinar. So it's gonna be called the 5 steps to reprogram your brain.
I love
So
it.
I will definitely get that to you.
I'm so excited. Well, this has been awesome. You gave so many great tips and just like my mind's reeling too of like all these great little like I love the segmenting. I mean, that is just, you know, so smart to think of it that way. Um, but I always like to ask too, if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners, what would that be?
Mm, I think just overall, like you you have a unique energetic footprint. Like how we all have like, our fingerprints, like nobody ever in the history of the world has your exact fingerprint. Like the same goes for your energetic footprint. And so when we think about comparison, like at the end of the day, you actually can't compare yourself to anybody else. You compare yourself to you, but you can't compare yourself to somebody else because even if you did the exact cookie cutter version of the other person, if you said the same things and you posted the same stuff and you did the same business and you had the same husband and kids, and if you had the same everything in your life, if you were a clone of somebody else, you still have this unique energetic footprint. And so just know that, like, as you're going throughout the world and especially building your business, that yes, people pay for what you know, but people ultimately pay for your energetic footprint. And just know nobody can take that from you. And so when I learned that, it just everything faded away. I realized, oh my gosh, like I am the gold. I am the thing that no one can take. And that goes for everyone. And I think that that's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I want all of you listening to hear that. Like you are your gold. It is so true. No one else has what you have. You have that.
Mm-mm.
And if you're
Yeah.
not sharing it, if you're not being authentically you and sharing it in your way, I mean, other people are missing out on that because they want
Yes.
the real you, right?
Yes, exactly. Like it's magic that no one else has. It's a perfect combination of things that no one else has. So who are you to keep that from us? Who are you to keep that from the world? And I think more people need to hear that because I think, like we said, a lot of people develop trenches of why me, and I'm not enough, and what do I have to offer the world? And especially when you're building your business and you're creative and you're putting yourself out there, there's a lot of vulnerability with that. And it's really easy to start like second guessing, like, am I, am I it? And like, what I'm trying to say is that you are it. You just have to find that and tap into your unique energetic footprint and really lead with that, with confidence.
I love that.
So
And I'm going to, Sarah will be in our group. So you guys, as I always say, come to our Facebook group. And I'd love for you to share what you took away and what it is that makes you uniquely you. Like, what is that thing that you're like, you know what, you're right. I have this thing that like people compliment me on, or I know is great about me. And come share that, because Sarah and I are going to be there, and we're going to be, excited to cheer you on. Or also, if you have questions that you're like, hey, sometimes I feel this way, what could I do? Come and talk
yeah.
to us, right? Like, we would love
Yes.
to help you out with that.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thank you
And
for having me.
oh, of course, of course.
This
And
is fun. I love having these types of conversations.
I know it was so great. And yeah, and definitely we might even have to have you back when we hear from everybody. So,
Part
uh,
two.
exactly. But you guys, I can't wait to see you in the Facebook group. We will be there for you. And until next week, when Yo Adrienne talks, realize the power is within you.